Welcome back for another conversation about how working artists learn from each other. As many forms of art embrace new technology, artists are reaching across the disciplines for new ideas and inspiration. This week we met with director and interdisciplinary artist Chi-Wang Yang, who is an alumnus and now faculty in the School of Theater at Cal Arts. There's more biographical information on Chi-Wang at the end of this video. Now, let's join him on stage at the Sharon Disney Lund Dance Theater at Cal Arts to discuss the work that he chose, the Wurster Group's production of Hamlet from 2007. We chose our location aptly because we're sitting here today in the Sharon Disney Lund Dance Theater here at Cal Arts, and it's actually a work of theater that you chose to talk about today.
Yes.
So why don't you tell a little bit about the work and why you chose it?
Well, when you mentioned that the theme of the conversation was time, I was really thinking about different projects that would be good ways of getting into that. And a performance that has always stayed with me is the work of the Wurster Group, and specifically their production slash reperformance slash study of Hamlet. They are working with a performance of Hamlet that was originally shot for film. What was happening was that during that time, Richard Burton was performing a very famous production of Hamlet on Broadway. And so they had this idea to do a 17-camera film shoot of the staged version, and they would edit that together and then distribute that print to theaters across the country, and have that shown simultaneously for a couple of nights. And they called that, I think, Teatro Vision?
Theatro film done in Electronovision.
Electronovision, right.
Do we think there was any other productions done in Theatro Vision?
I can't think of any. This one seems or certainly no one is talking about them these days. What the Wurster Group has done with many of their productions is kind of slam together multiple kind of dramaturgies. There's the theatrical stage, and behind that is a video screen. Through processing of the image, they've removed certain characters from the film version, and their live bodies start to kind of take the place of those characters.
One of the things I really love is they're very honest about it being a kind of digital projection, and it kind of loses sync sometimes, or you'll see the kind of load button, and then they allow the kind of play, the word play, to stay at the top of the screen, which is this kind of funny commentary on both the mediatization of it, but also the fact that you're sitting there watching a play.
Yeah, you literally see the interface. They drag on screen like the Final Cut Pro, like kind of editing timeline, and they sort of like perform an edit to show you their process. But at the same time, you see these signifiers of analog or linear video and film. So you see the play text, and you see the two play arrows. You see them fast forward and rewind. Things that we don't really see so much in nonlinear editing, and when you get into more digital media.
They sort of play at being mediatized themselves from time to time. They'll sort of step backward and forward as if they're going back and forth in time, or rewinding their bodies a little bit, or glitching a little bit even before they proceed to the next.
Yeah, yeah. The video itself has these sort of jumps and stutters, many of which I'm sure are intentional. But the actors themselves end up embodying and performing those jumps and stutters. So you do have these moments where, when there's at least a kind of glitch in the video, or a jump or a stutter in the video, the actors will actually put that into their bodies.
Right, they'll kind of reset almost.
Yeah, and sometimes it looks like they are mimicking what's happening in video, which is something that you only see in videos, that kind of stutter. They're also showing the sort of what happens when time in the machine and time in media is deformed and put through its paces. And when you put that together with the body, I think you kind of see those side by side.
One of the interesting things for me about watching it is to understand how much the lifelikeness of the body has to be surrendered to the conditions of the production. This sort of notion of improvisational choice completely goes away in this kind of theater.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear the performers talk in interviews I've heard, when the performers talk about having certain kinds of scoring kind of applied to them in live performance. So in this piece, another thing you see on stage are different monitors, and those monitors are showing the actors content that they themselves need to stay in sync with.
But with this sort of production, it really demands a kind of active spectator. I mean, you actually, you're invited to follow, you choose sort of whether you're going to follow the screen or whether you're going to follow the actors, if you're going to notice what's happening here, if you're going to notice what's happening there. And it's actually hard to be passive.
For the most part, for more conventional theater, the stage is structured with a kind of unity in mind. There's a kind of unified, singular space that the proscenium defines, and then within that there's a unified time that the performance itself carries. Time and space are so unified in a kind of more conventional theatrical event, but in this case it is totally blown apart and juggled around.
This sort of notion of a kind of dividing line between the audience and the live performers and the spectacle that is the theatrical production is becoming thinner and thinner. I wonder how you think about that notion of provocation in terms of your own work also.
One of the most rewarding things is not only performing work in theater festivals or in traditional theaters, but also in animation festivals, because there's a media and screen-based kind of component to it, or in film festivals, or in art galleries, or at a telescope, outdoor telescope on the top of a mountain. Like, those are all places that we performed.
Right. Right, and where performances can exist in contemporary art these days.
Yeah.
The next step off from something like this is a sort of more immersive experience in general, right?
You know, we have to just take one step back and look at how heterogeneous now our live presences are, and how we are constantly responding to these alternate videos and medias. As much as the sort of self-referential aspects of the show are entertaining and interesting, I really love the moments where it's so subtle and they've learned it as a choreography, and it starts to become how this character moves. Right.
Yeah, it becomes a whole again, and a believable character.
You know, as theater is about reperforming things over and over. It's this weird obsession that theater artists have, right?
Right,
so, like,
to get it right every night.
and to keep reperforming. I mean, who reperforms the same text over and over again for hundreds of years, you know? I think in that regard, this piece is asking, like, well, what is Hamlet? Who is Hamlet? Like, we certainly can think of Hamlet as a character, but Hamlet is also a cultural invention of thousands upon thousands of re-performances of that Hamlet over decades and countries.